So the title says it all. We're going to be using a really cheap microphone, and then we're going to be trying to make the audio as usable as possible. Odds are, if you're watching this, your microphone is going to be better than this one. It's $25. It is literally the cheapest microphone that you can buy on Amazon, I think. It's definitely one of them. And the way we're going to be going about this is we're literally going to edit the voiceover as I record it. So yes, this is technically tailored towards voiceover, but this works the same for vocal performance. Anything that has to do with the human voice, these techniques are going to apply to. Unless you have an NW-800, odds are your situation is not going to be this drastic. So you'll probably get a better tone than I will. First thing, we are going to identify the problems with the room around us and also with our particular microphone. If you can't hear, this microphone picks up a lot of the room around it and a lot of the room noise around it, meaning the vent fan that you currently hear in my laptop, super noticeable. You're also going to hear a lot of reflections because I'm working on a tiled floor in an untreated wall right next to a window and a mirror. You probably could not get a worse setup for this. And again, you probably have a more ideal space than I do. If you happen to have a closet to work in, or if you have somewhere that sounds more dead, you could even just use a blanket. That's going to work a lot better. And I'm not necessarily telling you to make it as dead as possible because that's going to introduce its own set of problems. Try and treat as much of the reflectivity in your room as possible before you start this process. I hope you guys appreciate that I am showing you pretty much the worst audio quality I am ever going to make in pursuit of making it better because, yeah, I'm usually not okay with how terrible this signal is whenever we first start. So let's say you've already eliminated the reflectivity problems. We're then going to go into our particular microphone's issue. For example, the NW-800 has a lot of buildup in the high end, and it also has a lot of problems with sibilance. Prepare your ears. That hurts. And it's because it has a really harsh high end, so we need to figure out how to address that. We also need to do some carefully cueing in order to get that boxy high middle range that we're getting from the frequency response out of this microphone. And finally, the NW-800 does a god-awful job at rejecting the room around it. We're going to need to figure out a way to get all of this fan noise, all of these room reflections, pull them back a little bit. Make it not as noticeable. So what are the answers to this? The first thing I'm going to address is some things that should help in the way you're recording. First off, in order to minimize plosives, we're going to put on a windscreen. Oh yeah. So now our plosives are still going to be a little bit present, but a lot less so. We also want to make sure we're going to be recording closer to the microphone in this setup because we don't necessarily want to get a lot of the room noise. We want the direct audio to be as present as possible. You'll also notice that I'm tilting it down and towards my face. That way the plosives are going over the microphone rather than going into them. So let's address the sibilance that hurts our ears, and you can hear it basically non-stop now that I pointed it out. Every song that has poorly contained sibilance you used to love, I ruined it. I'm sorry. So I'm going to throw on a de-esser. A de-esser is essentially a compressor that reduces the noise level on specifically frequency ranges that have to do with the S sound, the tss, which is going to happen a little bit higher up in the frequency spectrum. If we look at the screen, you'll see I have it turned on. Tss, tss, tss. You see how it's reducing the high end now? Now it sounds a little bit weird for the time being, but that tss is a lot less painful. If I turn it off, tss, 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 tss. Now it's picking up a lot of the fan noise and it's kind of chopping it up, which we're going to address in a second. But yes, that's our first step. Now I also mentioned how this microphone has a lot of buildup in the high end. So let's EQ it to get some of that out and boost some of the other frequencies so it sounds a little bit more balanced, a little bit more full. So here is the EQ that I've created. We see that we have a big old dip in the high mid range, and we also have a small dip in the mid range, and we have a boost in the low mid range. This is hopefully to bring out the fullness of the voice more. And it's also hopefully to take out some of the harshness that we're hearing on the high end. I'm going to say a sentence with the EQ on, and I'm going to say a sentence with the EQ off. I wish I owned a very large goat. I wish I owned a very large goat. I wish I owned a very large goat. Sounds a lot better to me, and we're also getting a less of the hissing sound. I wish I owned a very large goat. I wish I owned a very large goat. I wish I owned a very large goat. I do sometimes wish that. And the last thing, we still hear all the room noise. We still hear my laptop going crazy. The solution to that is going to be a gate. So check this out. I have the gate turned off right now, and it's set at negative infinity. What that means is when I turn it on, it's going to let everything through. It's doing nothing. But if I set the gate to only let signals above a certain dB level through, when I'm not talking, you don't hear anything. Now there's a couple other things on here, including hold and release and attack. Attack is going to pertain to when the signal activates. Release is going to pertain to when it lets go after I stop talking. So if I set a really fast release, it nearly instantly stops, which sounds kind of mechanical. You can hear like in my pauses and my sentence, if I kind of talk with a choppiness, it sounds like I'm glitching, like a robot or something. But if we set the release to be a little bit higher, you're going to hear the noise gradually fade away when I stop talking. I might set it to be a little quicker than that. So now we're only hearing the fan noise whenever my voice is activated. We lose a little bit of that noise floor. Now this is never going to be perfect. I can kind of solve the issue of my fan by just kind of bringing the microphone farther away from it. But you can see it's a lot better. Now, the very last thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to add what's called parallel compression. If you've seen the videos before, we've done a lesson on parallel compression already, but I have a return track set up here with the R compressor set up to a pretty intense level of compression, like around 15. I have the threshold set so it's activated, and I've also pumped up the gain a little bit to bring it back up to operating levels. I've also emphasized the low end that I've emphasized in the track before and cut away some of the signal that includes the CPU fan noise and also all the other nasty room reflections that we don't necessarily want. Now I can blend this to taste. I have it about negative 12 dB at the moment. In fact, I'm actually going to set this gate to be a little less quick so it doesn't cut off my words. Now you can see I have a dip in the EQ where the fan noise is and the room reflections are to try and make it a little bit more cut down in the parallel compression as well, but it's not going to be perfect. So let's hear all of this with it activated and with it unactivated, just the raw signal. Here's the signal itself after it's been processed. I wish I had a very large goat. 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 It's way more boxy in this setting. It's way less boxy in this setting. We've cut down on the fan noise quite a bit, and we've also made our voice sound a little bit more full. Now, look at me. Look right here. This is worst case scenario, hopefully. It's a $25 mic. It's a 6-year-old laptop running 3 programs at the same time with an insane amount of fan noise in an insanely reflective room backed up to a window and a mirror. With this simple audio edit, we've made the signal a lot more usable. It's still not perfect. You're still going to hear the fan noise, but it's a lot better than if I talk like this. Hopefully, your setup is going to take to these a little bit better because it's hopefully going to be more controlled and it's probably going to have a better microphone. But these are some really simple ways. I mean, we're really only doing parallel compression and then 3 plugins that you can take your signal, beef it up, make it sound a lot better using a cheap microphone. All right, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in lessons, you can email me at RealAudioHaze. I'll put my qualifications up on the screen now. Follow me on Instagram at RealAudioHaze. And that's all. I'll see you in the next video. And I'm going to leave you with untreated room noise. Goodbye, everyone.